Welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today we are joined by Sammie Ellard King, and he's on today to talk about his personal finance website, upthegains.co.uk. Sammie has been building this website for a couple of years now, and as you might know, the personal finance space is very, very competitive. So we get to hear about a growth story from someone who's in a very, very competitive YMYL niche. Now, Sammie has a lot of background in marketing, which he shares about at the beginning of the podcast, but I didn't really have a whole lot of experience in building websites prior to this project. So we get into the nitty gritty. This is one of those stories where we get to hear the origin story all the way to where it is today. The website's now getting over 50,000 sessions per month. It's making mid four figures, but it's really poised to grow even further than that. Sammie comes on to talk about his very, very high-level, long-term approach that he's taking to it. Rather than going after really low-competition keywords, he talks about his strategy for building out hubs of content that fully answer different topics and about going after many of them at the same time, a little bit different than other people. He also talks about how he is going after multiple channels at the same time. So almost immediately after launching the website, he launched a podcast. He has a YouTube channel. He's got social media going. He's doing email marketing as well. So he's going about this perhaps a little bit differently than maybe a lot of other people. And we get to hear all the reasons why, how he's doing it, how he's scaling all of these efforts. We do get into building backlinks and talk a good amount about the need for backlinks, especially in this very competitive world. And along the way, we just get to hear Sammie share a lot of different insights about the different things he's learned, the different things he's doing, and the different nuances that make his website really successful. All in all, a great interview. You can follow along on Sammie's journey at his website, or you can also get some of the links in the show notes to where you can find them. I hope you enjoy and learn a lot. Before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
What a crazy campaign. How to Sleep on Your Back. This campaign got us links in Huffington Post, Glamour magazine, Mirror, and lots of other great news publications. Let me show you how we've done it. It was so simple. Our sleep client provided us with expert commentary about how to train yourself to fall asleep on your back. They also gave advice on why it's best to sleep on your back. Once we've had this information, we went to Muckrack and searched for journalists that consistently write about sleep and well-being. We've sent these journalists the advice provided by the client, and within one day the links started flowing in. Glamour magazine, a DR81 website, picked it up. Huffington Post, DR88, Mirror UK, DR90, a massive avalanche of links blasted to our client's website with this simple yet effective campaign about how to sleep on your back. I hope this inspires, and I hope you'll use this technique to land massive links to your or your client's website.
If you want similar link building PR campaigns for your website, head to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them now. Welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today we are joined by Sammie Ellard King. Sammie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jared. It's good to be here, man.
It is great to have you, and I know that we've been working on this for a little while now. I'm glad to have you. We're going to hear your story about your website that you're growing, and that has been growing quite a bit. We always like to ask, though, like, give us a backstory, catch us up to some of your past history, who you are, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not your typical niche site SEO. I've sort of come a different route to what most people would say. I studied music production and did university course in that, and then fell into hospitality marketing at a very young age. My whole family's in the business. My grandfather runs jazz clubs. My dad runs restaurants. My mum runs bars. So, it's ingrained in me. So I sort of fell into that because it was where I felt most at home, and I felt like I could add a little bit of value. I built myself up to be one of the youngest heads of marketing in the UK at just 25, and then really went on a kind of up spree into sort of director level, running big hospitality groups. And then I've transitioned out, and really it was COVID that hit me. I always knew that I wanted to start my own business, and I had that aha moment that I think a lot of us had. Realized it wasn't filling up my heart in the same way, and started a personal finance brand, and then was writing blogs, found actually the Niche Pursuits podcast and Niche Website Builders podcast, and then I was like, wow, these guys are making some serious cash, and I had to dial in, man. So here we are.
I've got to imagine your marketing background has had an impact on building websites, but at the same time, you kind of had, well, let's see, how do I say this politely? Like at 25, you're head of marketing. Like you had kind of perhaps the world at your fingertips in the marketing world. I'm sure it's helped, but like talk about that transition and why you felt strongly enough that you wanted to run your own business given your success early on.
I've side hustled and run my own businesses since I was 15 years old. I had a drop shipping clothing business at 15, 16. I started my own events company with my first student loan, so I didn't go out and spend it like everybody did. I still spent it for sure, but I spent the profits of the business that we had. So I've always been entrepreneurial. I just never figured out what it was that I really wanted to do. I think it happens to so many of us in our 20s, and then we just like, we have to get a job because, you know, we can't live at home anymore. You know, mum, dad are like, come on, son, out the door kind of thing. To me, I was quite independent. I moved out really early, and, you know, I needed to pay my rent. So I had to get a job doing something, and hospitality really came so naturally to me. I was, you know, in jazz clubs and restaurants from the age of 5 after school, just put in that environment. So I've, as I said, like super felt at home, and like added a lot of value early because I came at it with it takes probably what I picked up in my younger years. It takes people 20, 30 years in the industry to pick up being around and being in that environment. So I had a leg up, which certainly served me well in my younger years for sure. And yeah, the transition really was because, you know, I suppose it was more of a feeling that I had something else to give. I knew I was working for somebody else, you know, in my 20s, and then I went into business with friends of mine, and we started a hospitality group just before COVID kicked off. And, you know, I loved it. It was great fun, but I just think that reset moment for me was so massive, and it just all came out. And I realized I've been helping people invest and learn about finances outside of that, family, friends. I set up a WhatsApp group in COVID, and that kicked off. It had like 250 people in it, which was the max you could have in a WhatsApp group at the time. And I just was like, if you guys got no place to go, and they were like, no, like, you know, there's Martin Lewis in the UK, who's kind of the biggest personal finance guy. But they found him not as relatable and wasn't talking about some of the subjects that they really wanted to hear about. You know, he's much more broad personal finance. I kind of come at it from a making money, side hustles and investing stance. And they were like, look, we don't really have anywhere to go. So I was like, bang, business idea. And that for me was like my kind of calling, because I was confident speaking about it. I was doing these things outside in my day-to-day. So I started a business, a brand, and, you know, website. I knew I needed a website, of course, and I'd had teams building websites for me in the past. I've had SEO agencies. We've had an extreme focus on local SEO. It was a massive part of my marketing strategy to build out these big hospitality groups. They're multi-million pound groups now that we've built from scratch. So, you know, I knew about SEO, but I just didn't understand I'd never gone and done the hard work myself. You know, I'd always been told about, you know, we're ranking for X amount of keywords, we're building links into these sites, etc. So I knew the nuts and the small bits, but I'd never done it. And that was a big eye opener for me, and that was the transition.
Man, there's some similarities to our stories. It's funny, I have to call it out. Like at my first company that I ran, I didn't do any SEO. I hired it out to someone, and they had a lot of success, and that was really what opened my eyes to SEO. This is the mid 2000s, of course, but I was like, oh, this stuff really works. We're getting business from it. At my next company, I had a director of marketing. So SEO was a part of our strategy, and I was much more involved in it, but I wasn't doing it myself. It wasn't until I left that and started building sites on my own that I discovered how much I liked doing a lot of it and then also managing it. So it's interesting. And I want to ask you about that because like as we start to get into your website, which I'll give you the chance to share it and talk a little bit more about it foundationally, but you chose a website in the personal finance niche, which is probably regarded as one of the more difficult niches. Like, as you start to transition into building the website of it and what we'll call competitive research, niche analysis, those sorts of things, were you already kind of all the way in the idea and you're like, hey, I'm going to make a go at this because this is what I'm passionate about and I'll just have to figure out a way to get around the competition? Or did you actually look at the competition as a part of discovering that this is what you wanted to do?
It's a great question. I don't see this. I saw this as a brand, and the website is a part of that brand. When I realized I needed to content at scale to be able to develop the amount of traffic that I wanted to come inbound, that was only once then that I actually found out that YMYL was a thing and that I'd actually chosen possibly the hardest niche that I could possibly ever go into. And I was like, oh man, what have I done here? But I was way too far down the road. I'd built the brand. I had the ideas. I had the rollout. I knew what I was going to do, launch the podcast, not launch the YouTube after I'd built the SEO up. And I had it all mapped out. So I just thought, well, if I'm going to make a go at this and be the personal finance guy in the UK, then I've got to do it. And so, yeah, I just had to just grin and bear it, really, and try and get round the competition and try and be better than them, because that's what I was going to do anyway. So if I want to be the best, that for me was fine, whatever niche I'm operating in, essentially.
I think something we're going to keep coming back to today in the interview is this idea that you're building more than a website. And it's clear from our talking points and kind of working with you to create the agenda for today, really, when you, and I just want to call it out for listeners, like when you say the website is only a part of what you're building, you really do mean that. And you have this whole comprehensive strategy. Maybe from a high level, let's talk about the brand itself. And if you can, share where it's at right now, and then we'll start unpacking how you built it. It's always nice for people to get an idea for where it's at today so people can kind of start to understand then the process you went through.
Yeah, of course. So really, I registered the business 24 months ago, started taking it very seriously from 18 months ago. I would say 18 months is where we're at in terms of a content ramp up on the website side of stuff. It's really a 12-month thing, really, once I actually understood what the hell I was doing and I had a framework that was workable. But I see this as essentially when people are on Google and they're searching for their blog readers, that's a portion and a chunk of how people like to consume their information. People like listening and they like watching. So if you're listening, watching and reading, if I was only operating with an SEO strategy, I'm very much pigeonholing myself into one portion of that. So I knew that I needed to operate on multiple variables. I knew the power of social media, especially with personal finance, but with anything really. If people are interested in that niche, they will find you if you're creating great content there. And I understood the value of creating an ecosystem which was centered around a hub, which is the website, which is where everything is driven into. So essentially, all of those things are there as a support system for that website. Now, what that does is essentially what I found out in terms of the eyes of Google is it gives you a ton of authority because you're coming at this from different areas. You're also creating multiple traffic sources and essentially being able to bring people in from all walks of life where they like to operate in. I know friends of mine only sit on Instagram. They don't even go on YouTube. I know vice versa. I know people that only consume podcasts, don't listen to blogs. I know both. And so I want them all. How do I get them all? I've got to be where they are. So we've got to build out all of those channels. And I understand that this is a 5 to 10 year project for me. I'm not trying to come at this from, I need to make money in 12 months. I want everything to slowly work together to create really what I call a snowball or a juggernaut effect. And we've had some great results. We're on 52,000 sessions on the website, 280 articles. We have had some support there to create these articles. We've probably farmed out about 25% of it to writers or agencies, as you would call it, but heavily edited by myself and added personal opinion to that, all ghostwritten. And yeah, the website's doing what I would say quite well, really. It's mid four figures at the moment. The podcast has just got its first sponsorship in, which is not included in that revenue, and we're growing the YouTube channel actively at the moment. It's very early stages, but it's all well. We're ahead of where I thought I was going to be. So I'm very happy with where it's going at the moment.
Congratulations. I mean, you just rifled through website, a podcast, YouTube and socials. Like, that's the sign of a mature brand, to be fair. And you're doing all that within the first 12 to 18 months. Is this your full-time gig, or are you still involved in hospitality at all?
So yeah, I very recently, if you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen that I announced it. It was a big day for me. I sold my shares in the business about 3 months ago. So I've been full time. I do a bit of consultancy on the side, which is coming to an end now as well. So yeah, full time gig. It's my baby. I absolutely love it. I have a couple of other little niche sites on the side, but really they're just kind of a little bit of fun. But yeah, I'm just testing stuff on those sites really before I put it on the big one, really. So yeah.
Well, congratulations. I did see that, but I wanted to give you a chance to share it. And, so, all right, let's get into it. Let's roll up our sleeves here. I can tell that with your background in marketing and your ferocious appetite for tackling so many things under this brand, like we're going to get a lot out of this. I think from the outset, let me ask you, how do you split your time up? How do you decide where to put your time and energy? How do you create content on all these platforms? What's the approach you take? And again, someone who's sitting there thinking about the fact that they only have a website. How do I add other additional channels like a YouTube, like maybe a pod? Like, I want to get into your head about how you actually brainstorm it all and how you actually spend your time to do all these different things about the brand.
It's a really great question. I sort of touched on it earlier, but for example, the YouTube, we've just started that now. That's at 18 months in. I just said a lot of different channels, a lot of different things, and it can be overwhelming for people when they look at it because they're like, oh my God, like I could do Pinterest, I could do Instagram, I could do TikTok, I could do all of these things. And actually that can be quite detrimental if you do that, if you go kind of all at it in one go. I like to build a system and a framework and feel comfortable that one channel is operating at its highest efficiency, and that I can delegate it down to, say, a VA, or I can bring on freelance support to help with that. And that is something that we did. I brought a VA on 6 months ago. It's been an absolute game changer for me because it has allowed me to scale up and do different channels, which I really wanted to do. So we started with the website. We very quickly, sort of 6 to 8 months, moved into the podcast because I was getting some traction with the website, and I had the frameworks of the content and the content plan and the keyword research and the strategy for the scale up of that content all done. So for me, I was like ready to launch something else, and I really thought the podcast was going to take a long time to build. So I knew that was going to be something that we had to start if we really wanted to sort of start seeing some traction within sort of a year's time. And so I'm all about systems and frameworks, and once they're nailed down, we can then start to add and scale on top of that.
Does it start with an idea for an article? Does it start with keyword research and then from there move into, oh, that could be a YouTube video. Oh, that could be a podcast episode. Or does it start differently? Like, does it start with you maybe on a podcast talking about something, seeing traction, and then saying, we'll go research that topic and see what keywords are there? Like, where does it start? Where does the ideation start for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of it has to be down to competitor analysis, and I think that has to come into every single aspect of business that you ever do. If you're going to start a business, you need to know your competitors and your landscape inside out before you jump in. That's paramount number one if you're going to be starting a business. So looking at their topics and what they're focusing on, understanding what's ranking clearly for them, where they're getting traffic. I know a lot of keyword metrics are skewed, but you can kind of get a good idea. We built the website very differently to perhaps some niche site SEOs will teach you to do. We built the hubs first. So we built the bigger, like what is, and the investing hub, the side hustle hub, the mortgages hub first, the best of pages first. So the key money pages first. And then we built the supporting content out from there. A lot of sort of blogs will say, get 30, 40 low keyword, long tail keywords out the gate first. And yes, that works as a strategy. It's not a strategy that doesn't work. But for me, where I'm looking at this from a 5 to 10 year mind frame, I knew the hubs were going to be the most important thing and where they were going to generate the most amount of revenue over the long term. So we started with almost what I call the foundations, knowing that was going to take 4 to 5 months worth of work, seeing zero traffic, nothing coming in, but it was important to get the framework right. And then we've built on top of that, adding layers from there, essentially.
The concept of, I love that you brought this up, because this is a common thing that we kind of talk about here on the podcast. It's a common strategy to go after very low competition keywords. As a result, though, you can oftentimes, we'll say, not put a focus on topical authority maybe. As a result, you don't stay in tight silos because you're kind of like, I'm personal finance. Oh, there's a cool topic on mortgages that no one's written about. I'll write that. Oh, there's a good topic on budgeting that no one's written about. You get a little bit more of a scattered approach, but you tend to rank quicker because they're low competition. You went the opposite approach. Why was that? You kind of alluded to it, but I'm just curious. Why did you go after that? And what were, maybe if you could compare the results that might have been versus the other approach, the low competition approach? It's hard to do because you didn't go that way. But I'm just curious, like, so many people don't start that way. You chose to start that way.
Yeah, I think it's more my mindset of my delayed gratification really with this, because I understood that to build this, if you look at some of the biggest personal finance sites like your Nerd Wallets and your money saving experts, etc., their hub pages are where all of the activity comes from. So people come into the site and then they funnel out and they search you by brand name. So I knew that the brand name was something that we had to build out. We had to get out there with digital PR, with myself, just personal brand, building that up so people understood and they search for Up the Gains when they want money content. And if they come into the site like that, then they need to funnel into the hubs to get what they want out of that. So that was why I did that. And because I had a very, a very good business that was just doing very well, I didn't need the money immediately to start making off ads from, your Ezoics, etc. from day one. So I took the longer term approach for that and then built out from there. It's a interesting way of thinking. I probably would have done better in terms of like building up subscribers to the mailing list, etc. Earlier. That is probably something definitely would have happened with more traffic, but I was new and I thought that was the right way to go. So it's paying off now.
I'm not saying it's not. Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. I'm very intrigued by it because there's a case to be made. It's a longer path to success, but perhaps more long-term, it's more scalable from what you create. So it's just interesting to hear you talk about it. A second question on that note, maybe if you could share with us what a hub page looks like, because a lot of people think of hub pages sometimes synonymously with category pages. And you're putting a lot of effort into your hub pages to make them a resource you actually want people to land on. You actually want people to go to from SERP results. You've actually studied competition. That's where NerdWallet drives a lot of their traffic. A lot of people build out hub pages, but it's just gateways, right? They're just kind of gateways to funnel people through and links to pass link equity and stuff. So how are you building out your hub pages, and what types of things are you putting on this type of a page?
So for example, let's take the Investors Academy. So we have, you land in, there'll be certain levels of content which people can then funnel through. So you're level 1, level 2, level 3 to kind of get themselves starting from what is a stock right through to picking your first investing app and then what happens after that. So this is kind of a funnel that you can take them through and on. Obviously, each page is interconnected and interlinked, so it's very easy for them to navigate through to the next one. I still have a ton of work to do on this, by the way, in terms of making it a better place. The vision for the site is really if you click the side hustle buttons at the top, it explains what a side hustle is, and then you can funnel through to relevant content or top performing content essentially from there. That's the next phase for us, is to get a lot better at that. But that's really the mindset that I want to have with this site.
Hey, just a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Just a quick reminder that today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Now, I've got a short clip from Ferry with Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
In this video, I will show you how we landed a placement on BBC and dozens of links in massive regional online publications such as Wales Online, Daily Post, and many more. This PR campaign was about the easiest place to pass your driving test for the first time in the UK. This is how we've done it. We simply went to DVLA website, found the latest car driving test data by test center, and downloaded the data in a CSV format. Once we had the data, all we had to do is to look at the number of total tests per test center, then look at the number of first time passes to calculate the percentage of people who passed their test for the first time. Once we had the percentage numbers, we created a press release with our findings. Then we went to Roxhill and found journalists who talk about driving tests, and also looked for journalists who write in regional publications in the UK. In total, we have found about 1,800 journalists and sent them our press release by email. Within less than a day, our story got picked up by BBC, Cornwall Live, Wales Online, and dozens of other publications in the UK, providing our client a tsunami of backlinks perfectly relevant to the audience of the client, who is a specialist in learner driver car insurance. I hope this video is helpful and it shows you how you can also build links with freely available data from official sources.
Like what you just heard and are looking for similar link building PR campaigns for your website? Just go to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today. What other tips do you have for people who are looking to adopt your mindset for their website, this mindset of what's the next step in their journey?
Yeah, it's a good one. Like I see this as well as like it helps with your topical authority essentially by having the hub, because you can very quickly, instead of having a homepage blog role, you have multiple areas of the site that are almost like sub websites themselves really, and essentially that just allows you to then package all of your, let's say, side hustle content into one section of the site, which is very easily accessible from the homepage essentially. And it just allows the structure of the website to build out quite naturally, rather than it being categories all over the places and very large navigation systems, which can get quite confusing to the user and they don't find the information that they want to find. So I wanted to try and keep it as simplistic as possible by doing that and allowing the user to come through and essentially find what they want to find as quickly as possible, which is obviously helpful for ranking signals too. So yeah, that's really my goal with this. I understand that we've got a lot of work to do to try and make the flow of the site better. I'm completely self-taught on this in terms of building the sites out, but I really want the visual aspect of the sites to be a large part of what we do. So I'm not just a theme out the box. I've completely revamped it all. Everything is bespoke built. The site is actually, I'm happy to talk about it. It's called Up the Gains. It's upthegains.co.uk if you want to quickly go and have a little look at that. But you'll see what I mean, because it's everything is designed to give the user a visual experience as well as the information that they want to. And that's a large part of what I'm hoping to do with this brand, because personal finance can be so boring and so cluttered with jargon, ego, and a lot of it is, your CFPs and accountants and these guys, they might be fantastic at what they're writing but it's walls of text and very difficult for someone who's a beginner and struggling with their finances to really kind of understand. So we're large text, visual images, infographics. It's a big part of the strategy for this site is to kind of take the users on a journey, and really kind of make them trust us as a brand. We want to be that money brand that they go to for absolutely everything.
How did you pick the different topics that you were diving down? Because we've talked about your approach. You didn't just go out and find low competition keywords and start writing. You really tried to write topically. Like one strategy is to take a topic like investing. I don't know if that's a topic, by the way. I assume in personal finance, it's probably a big one. But take a topic like investing and just write every article in that before you move on to another one. Or you know, were you kind of focus on a couple of categories at a time? And then how did you pick, once you wrote the big hub article, how did you start to pick which ones to write after that?
Yeah, look, I understand a lot of people bang the topical authority drum, and you know there's a lot of good work out there that says that that's correct. But where I wanted to build an absolute juggernaut, I've written in 5 different categories at all various times, even now to this day. I'm still ticking off silos within that, but I'm very much growing all 5 categories at the same time. So today I'm posting a mortgage article. Tomorrow I'm putting up a how to buy shares in X, Y, and Z. Tomorrow I'll be posting a side hustle that I've been studying and I'm talking about and that's hot in the trends right now. So for example, that I don't follow that same mantra that everybody does, because I'm building out this kind of massive ecosystem of articles on the site. You know, I could just write solely about investing or just solely about side hustles, and perhaps that's probably why why it's slower than I would have thought now at this point in terms of traffic growth. But I'm happy with sort of waiting and building out, because each one of those silos is 400-500 articles a piece, right. Really, those category pages, easy, and probably more, so I've got a lot of catching up to do at 280 articles with 5 sort of major categories on the site. So I'm happy with that though.
We've been dancing around it for a while, so I'm glad to just put a fine point on, because it does go back to this concept of you creating a brand rather than a website. It seems so connected to that. Like, you're creating a brand. It didn't start with keyword research and going, oh, hey, there's a good opportunity. No one's written about purple hamsters. I'm going to make a website about purple hamsters, right? Like, it started with a WhatsApp group. It started with a passion, and it started with your friends asking you questions. I'm so fascinated by that approach rather than maybe more classic like SEO, competition, topical authority approach that we take. And not that there's anything wrong with that, right? Like, lots of success comes from that. But your approach on brand is really cool to hear. And our job here is to share different perspectives on the podcast and success from different ways. And it's just another different way that you're succeeding than than what you said, than what other people are doing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And look, if I started a Bulldog site for tomorrow, for example, I'd be probably doing exactly that, going after long tail keywords and pumping out 30, 40 articles and trying to get them indexed manually and going down that route. But it's a very, I wouldn't be building a massive brand around that Bulldog site yet. So I just think like that, I suppose, and I think that's helped me from my marketing background to really do that. We do have frameworks and on-page SEO blueprints which are very, very driven to heavy SEO, and that's been picked up by listening to a lot of the guests on this podcast, to be fair. So we do have those frameworks down now, and the problem we've got, especially in personal finance, and I know you'll love this, Jared, is that links is absolutely key.
It's on my list to ask you about. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I knew it'd be coming up. So authority is massive. I'm getting slapped left, right, and center every time I put my head above the parapet. I'm getting a headshot, and that's like the way it is in my industry, because there's so many money sites out there. A lot of sites operating around a sort of 20 to 40 DR level with great traffic, clearly doing very well, all going after each other's keywords. So it's a battle to find new avenues and new forms of traffic, and when you do, you get hit, and that's the game. So we've got to build a massive authority as well as great content, which I believe is the best content that we could possibly put out. I'm very picky about what we put out. I'd rather wait and not publish these 5 articles if there's some better research or some better stats in there that we can find. We do go as deep as we possibly can, and we try to find new data. And something I'll touch on here, we're seeing a lot of success with stats articles at the moment. I know it's something that's been touched on before on the podcast, but one way that we do things is we don't just pull stats off somebody else's website. We put stats together from different sources. So we'll source on, say, for example, .gov about the average pension pots in the UK, and obviously we'll have those blocks in there that the other articles clearly have, or the other competitors in the SERPs, but we'll try to find blocks of data that we can combine to create new percentages and new stats that Google are like, oh, we've not seen this before. So that gives us a new perspective, and that's been paying off for us. A lot of our stats articles are doing really well and attracting organic links now for the sites, and they're all internally linked into the money pages and the info content, which also links up to the money pages. So it's a strategy that we're seeing some really good growth in, and hopefully that gives a lot of longevity and builds authority for the site, and kind of pushes us up the SERPs. But personal finance, man, is a battlefield I really didn't expect, but it's also a lot of fun as well, and if we can get it really right, it's very fruitful too.
I'm glad you brought it up, because you can't talk YMYL without talking links. But 12, 18 months in, like that, that could have maybe not been on your horizon yet. It is. How are you tackling link building from a high level? Do you have types of links you're focusing on? You touched on building stat pages. I love what you're not just taking stats, but you're actually building repositories of data, pulling stats from a bunch of sources. Almost like you're making it easier for people to get the information they want from different studies or stats that have been published elsewhere. But how are you going to get to, let's just, for the sake of putting a number on, how are you going to get to a DR70? What's the plan and what's the path to get there?
Great question. We focus heavily on digital PR from quite early, and we did that with Niche Website Builders. Rest in peace. The guys over there, they did a great job initially with getting us ranking. We picked up your Metros, your Telegraphs, etc. type big newspaper, big DR links, which the site didn't have. We had your forums and your very low DR sort of blogs, which you messaged the owner or met on Twitter and begged and borrowed and stole for the link, essentially.
Right.
But we realized quickly, we had to get investment to do that. We brought an investor on. I'm sure a lot of listeners on this podcast will know who he is. Jamie IF, and it was a very strategic decision as well from a business standpoint. One of the most budding, best affiliate marketers out there. We're going to build an affiliate site essentially, so having him on board has been massive, and also good cash injection for us to allow us to build out a digital PR and a link building strategy, which has been pivotal to its growth and will be pivotal to its growth ongoing. So we focus heavily on getting top high DR topical relevant sites to link to us from a brand perspective. The stats page, obviously, that we touched upon are built solely for organic attraction purposes. We're actually going to test out an interesting thing which I heard the other day as well, which is buying ads to the higher pages. So the average mortgage payment, for example, buying ads to that because it's extremely high traffic. There's no ads on those pages when you click on them. So every journalist is going to be searching for that, especially with the current landscape that we're facing in both the US and the UK right now. Hot topic. And if we can pick up even more organic links for keeping what is essentially a low click, a low cost to click, low TPC essentially, that might be quite a fruitful thing. So we're going to try these things because, as I say, in personal finance, we need to be at DR50 plus and to be able to start competing and just knocking people out, and also essentially going after unfortunately for the smaller guys, going after the smaller guys and their traffic, because it's a war and it's a game of the SERPs essentially, and we're here to play. So that's the way we see it.
I'm looking at your site in Ahrefs as we speak, and you're sitting at a DR25, which is good for a site that's a year or two old, right? But like you said, I mean, the other challenge of being on the lower side and ranking is that people start snatching up your keywords because they see a DR25 site ranking. And so when you get into that DR50, people, to some degree stop going after your keywords because you at least look a little more competitive or harder to beat.
Exactly, man. Exactly. As I say, we're just getting swiped. If you look at our search console graph, it just seems like we just pop back up. We just beat our last sort of clicks on Google. Next 2 weeks, slap back down, and that'll be because a big personal finance site in the UK happened to me recently, just came in and swiped out all of it was literally our top 10 ranking articles, and they went 1 and we were ranking number 1 for all 10. We went to number 2, and then since another one's come in, so we're now 3. And that's where I was like, right, it's YouTube time. This is the second part of the strategy, because I was like, right, none of these guys are creating YouTube content inside of their blog articles. So our YouTube strategy has been about cementing some of our most popular articles. And that is and also to see whether or not we can take back those SERPs by having video inside of our content. So we've created those. We're about 4 videos in at the moment, so super early days, but these are, good quality YouTube videos, which are great for building out the YouTube channel, of course, but the other strategy is embed those into the articles, have them extremely high up on the page. So if that person just wants to have a quick peruse, one that's going to help both the time on page is going to grow significantly inside of those articles, which is going to be a great ranking factor for Google. They're going to enjoy the fact that there's video in there, especially launched on YouTube. And hopefully we're taking that back. And interestingly, on the first 2 articles that we put those videos in, we went from 3 to 2. And now we're kind of flirting every day. It changes between 1 and 2 again. So we're actually beating these sites who are DR70, one of them's DR84. So it can be done. And it just goes to show that, having video inside of your content, clearly Google is massively favoring that right now. And obviously the time on page increasing month on month is a big factor there. So that's a strategy that we're going to go with kind of a view on, yes, we want to create videos for YouTube, and that's a big part of what we want to do, but actually where we've built out 280 articles, we can see which articles are bringing the traffic in and clearly getting people searching for them. So having a video there on those articles is a big ranking factor. How
do you make a video about a personal finance topic? It reminds me a bit of SEO, like in theory pretty dry, it's not cat videos. It's also not like how-to videos necessarily, like how to fix such and such in your house or your car or something. Like, these are dry topics, and we run into it at our agency. We do a lot of article creation with video and with photos, and we get emails from people in the personal finance space, and like, how would you do that here? What would you do for us if we're going to do that? So I'm just curious, like, what's your video strategy when it comes to making a video about? I don't know what you made the videos about, but like, how to invest your 401 whatever, your 401k. Like, man, that's a tough video to make interesting.
For sure. You're right, man. It's all about personality in these types of situations. I'm very fortunate to be an extrovert character, and so I throw a ton of energy into it, and I totally get it. A lot of SEOs are introverts, and a lot of people are introverts in the world. It's a totally normal thing, right? So putting yourself on camera, even for me as an extrovert, was extremely difficult. But there are ways of doing it to create these kind of fun things. We have sound effects, big captions, a lot of infographics pop up that we explain, etc. So visually we're trying to keep them active as much as we possibly can when we're building out these videos, because you're right, man, suddenly it's like, I'm falling asleep and I've gone, and then it's like and it is so easily done. So they're not long, they're sort of 8 to 9 minutes was kind of what our benchmark really for those. I think we might go up to sort of 15 minutes for them app reviews. But yeah, like it's the same with the written content. How do you turn a how to invest article into something that somebody wants to read? You've got to inject personality into your writing, and it's the same with video too.
You've been doing the podcast for a while, so you talked about it, and it's probably a good time to circle back. Why did you start? So you had your website, but why did you start with your other media creation with the podcast? What sort of success has that had, and how much do you think, if any, that success has helped the website?
Oh yeah, it's a massive factor. So the strategy with the podcast was there's an absolute raft of influencers in the personal finance space with massive followings on multiple channels, whether that's Instagram, YouTube, you name it, or even a fantastic blog or LinkedIn channel. Some of the guys that we've interviewed recently have only got those. But the strategy there is not only to attract links, because you'll naturally attract links from the guys that you work with. They list the podcast as something that they've done on their site, and that's fantastic for us growing. But also I saw it as an opportunity to leverage a social media audience, which I didn't have. So I was putting out content, short film content and infographics essentially on there. But also the podcast I could cut up into hundreds of video clips, which I could then launch and cherry pick the best ones, which we would put on our socials. Then with Instagram, you can do collaborative content. So suddenly my beautiful little 800 followers that I had back when I first sort of started this, I'm then on a channel which has got 120,000 followers, by interviewing this person on the podcast and having a great clip of them talking about themselves. Why would they not want to recycle that? Because it's essentially free content for them. So the plan was to leverage other bigger channels and their following, and allow that to scale both the social media side of things, which I could then start funneling traffic back into the website too. So we've built the Instagram page to just over 5,000 followers by doing that strategy, and that really has kind of allowed us to propel. Now when we post article of the week, or our top reads this month, those types of things, those clickbacks of the articles can be in their hundreds, and that obviously is a good ranking signal for Google. But equally as well, when we have some ads on the site, it's an earner too. So that was the strategy with the podcast. And then also really I see this as well as if I'm operating on YouTube and in a website territory, having a media kit where I can say I'm getting X amount of downloads on a podcast. You can advertise on the website, can also talk about you on my next YouTube videos. It costs X amount that allows me to be able to charge larger sponsorship deals essentially to these brands, and they get to cherry pick as well where they want to be. Perhaps they were looking only for YouTube and podcasts, and I'm there and I have good channels to do that with. That just allows me to earn revenue in different ways, essentially not only relying on Google and affiliate marketing to make that happen.
Yeah, personal finance, very competitive as we talked about, but also very lucrative. And I'm sure there's a lot of brands out there that have a lot of money to get in front of audiences.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like today, we actually just closed our first major brand deal, and this was a brand that is paying to be. There's a new app that's paying to be listed on the best investing apps page as the suggested app for 3 months, including a CPA as well. So still getting the CPA, but they just want to be on the top of that page. And obviously they want the link. And I don't know whether they understand the value of the link, but there's a lot of brands out there that have budgets, and they have big budgets, and they're global brands. They make a lot of money from these investing apps themselves. So the marketing budgets are big. And that was something that I was wary of. Hence why I'm like, if I build this juggernaut after 3 to 5 years, then I can turn around and say, you want that spot, it's X amount of money, which, could be quite lucrative across, especially if I've got multiple best of pages and hubs along the site, essentially.
Yeah, you mentioned it, so I'll kind of call it out. You and I live in the greater marketing world, and different things we've done. And you're exactly right. Like, I'll go ahead and say, I doubt that brand cares one bit whether you make that link no follow, do follow, or sponsored. Like,
Exactly.
in our little world here, we're like all about the link. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll do whatever I can to get the link. Bigger brands, they want the larger PR win, and they will spend. And I think it's super wise of you. You're exactly right. Like, you have a media kit that has more than just, I'll put you on this website, this page, but I can actually get you in front of a whole variety of channels. Like, that's such a win for them and their marketing team. That's the type of stuff they're looking for. That's the type of stuff they want to spend money on.
Totally, man. And they've got kind of this, actually, they've got investors and a board to turn around to. And actually, it's just a PR exercise for themselves. You know, we got listed on X, Y, and Z website as the suggested app for this month, and they get X amount of traffic. Like, really, that's all that board meeting and that marketing guy needed to say, and they're like, oh, well done, you know, happy days. And actually for me, yeah, it's like totally. And it's just like, for me, I'm like, amazing, that's my business costs covered for 3, 4, 5 months. But for them, they're just ticking a box, and they've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to play with in this arena. So I'm all up for taking a piece of it, essentially.
Heck yeah, man. Especially given how much you're having to spend and work at it. It's really rough when you're in a really competitive niche that isn't very lucrative, but at the very least you have a lot of lucrative things in personal finance. I saw on your homepage that you have an email list or newsletter or a process for collecting email addresses. Maybe I should say that. We haven't touched on email marketing. Is email marketing playing a role at all in what you're doing?
Yeah, massive factor. We have lead magnets. We have lead magnets by category as well. Some do a lot better than others. Mainly their checklists and ebooks, essentially. I put a lot of time into them initially, and then ChatGPT came out and blew that out the water, essentially. So now if you want to create a lead magnet, you can do that in under 10 minutes with some good prompting and editing, essentially. So, I think they're essential. It's, again, another channel for me to funnel back into the website. But equally, we've been doing really quite well out of affiliate emails to them. But embedding those affiliate links as part of, so every Friday we send out Money Talks, which is our free financial newsletter. We teach beginners all about different types of topics, essentially. And within that, we have the hot app of the week, and they might have a deal or a cashback offer, essentially, to sign up to a new bank. And the click rate on those is fantastic. And, that's been doing a lot better than I thought it would. And we've only got a handful of subscribers at the moment, so about 1,500 subscribers. So nothing crazy, and it's doing okay. There's lots of avenues we can go down. We've got some digital products, which brings in a little bit of money. I say about 5% of revenue is digital products, budgeting spreadsheets, ebooks, essentially. We can go down the courses route. There's so many more avenues we can do, but it's that shiny object syndrome, which you do very well on a Friday afternoon podcast, Jared. But I got to try and keep myself focused on the mission until it's at a point where I can start to be a little bit more, risk on, essentially, by let's take a punt on doing a course. Because if I spend 2 months on a course and I don't nail it, that could be the end of the business, essentially. So.
It's inspiring to see how, at the same time, you're able to focus on different channels because of the business opportunity, and yet stay very cognizant that shiny object syndrome or overindulging or overinvesting in any one channel could be the end of it for you. That's a healthy balance. Yeah. And it's hard for people to focus on multiple things successfully, and it's hard for people to stay focused. And you're, seeming like you're really able to balance both of those really well.
It's inside how I say it, yes, inside my mind, it's a very different ball game. I'll be really honest with you. You hear these great strategies. I was so tempted to jump on the Amazon influencer thing, and
sorry about that. Spencer and I just can't stop talking about it.
Just killed it, man, as well. Hats off to you both. It's incredible. But I think if I was a year later down the line, I 100% would have done that. But I just realized, hang on, when my website isn't doing the revenue that I want it to yet, like that's where I've got to get first before I can sort of make those decisions. So yeah, like it's a constant battle. You know, I was talking to Jamie the other day, and you know he's got a site that's doing extremely well with digital products, and a lot of those strategies could be very quickly implemented on the site. But building out the products and paying for those and getting those right is a job in itself. And whether or not that's the high ROI activity, I'm constantly banging on about that. Right, what's the return on investment for me putting this time into that today? And is that going to generate us the most amount of money moving forwards? And if the answer is yes, then that's where we go. So obviously those things get slightly pushed aside to when we've got some more time to be able to focus on them.
As we start to kind of wrap this thing up, how does this scale in your mind over the next 6 and 12 and maybe 24 months? Because, I mean, we've talked about obviously your website content. We've talked inside of website content about the extreme need for a lot of links and to get to DR50 or above. We've talked about how there's probably 500 or more articles per silo, and you got 5 or 6 of those. We've talked about YouTube. We've talked about a podcast. We've talked about social media. We've talked about your email list. What's the plan going forward to keep scaling, but doing it in that manner that you seem to have the ability to kind of toggle multiple things, but still stay focused on?
I think for the next 6 months is a big focus on affiliate for us and getting those best money pages really optimized to the highest degree. And that's really where it's fantastic working with someone like Jamie, because he spots things that I don't, and that's having him there as a kind of great resource to tap into and spend time with and learn these things has been huge for me. So that's really the goal for us, is get that affiliate revenue absolutely singing to where it has, because the pages are almost built. You know, we've got a few more that we want to build out that we found along the way, but that's the real goal. And then everything needs to just keep ticking and moving forwards, as long as our metrics are all moving up and our channels are growing. For me, that's really the main goal. As I sort of touched on earlier, it is like kicking a snowball off the hill, and you know, by the time we get down, I want to be competing with your nerd wallets. And you know, if that's my goal, I'm not looking at this from Kevin from Epic Gardening is a perfect example of this. You know, he's just absolutely nailed it. He's now doing ridiculous numbers, but that's not happened overnight. He's built his brand with that long-term thinking aspect to it, and I think that's what I need to have. Just keep myself humble, keep myself ticking over, and hopefully, you know, we can emulate some of the successes that he's had along the way. Essentially,
it's quite the goal, right? Like to build we'll say a personal finance brand, but at the same time, I mean, to see the success you're having 12, 18 months in. It's very interesting to dissect the way that you're doing things. Let me maybe bring it back and kind of close out on this question. Looking back, if there's anything that you would have done differently, or any big mistake or any big miss that you didn't take advantage of that you wish you had, like anything you would have done differently from where you started to where you are now?
Yeah. I think I would have. I think I would have done a different niche. No, I'm joking. I honestly, this is the way that I'm built, and I can't really change that. I think if I had a little bit more knowledge in the SEO world, I probably would have gone harder on some long tail stuff earlier. But I'm okay with that. And I think it's hard to say, man. It's so hard to say looking back, but I'm really happy with where we're at, and as long as I sort of can keep my feet on the ground and keep moving forwards, then for me that's the most important thing. I think looking back, sometimes it can be so hard to cherry pick something that you could have done better, and we all sit there like constantly picking ourselves apart, like, oh man, should have gone down that, should have ripped that silo earlier. But these are things that we have to learn along the way, and eventually you just start making better decisions. It's getting the reps in at the end of the day. put the reps in, and you will get better. It's really that simple.
Well, Sammie, it's been a treat having you on. We've been working on this interview, on doing this interview for a little while now, so it's really fun having you on. It's always fun having someone who is a listener of the podcast on. And cheers on your success. I have a feeling that maybe in a year or two, when we have you back on, we'll look back at this episode and maybe chuckle a bit. Your perspective on how you're growing your brand is wonderful, and so it's going to be so cool to see where you end up in the next couple of years. We'll include a link to your website in the show notes. Any other places people can follow along with you? I know you mentioned Twitter. You and I connect there quite a bit, but any place people can go to follow along with you?
Yeah, we're Up the Gains Money on all your social channels. If you want to come and follow along there, I'm quite active on there. I talk a lot and post as much helpful content as I possibly can. I just love it, so that does help. And yeah, upthegains.co.uk is the website, and we do a free money newsletter as well. I'm also launching a little podcast with Jamie talking about digital marketing as well, so that'll be quite good fun too. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Perfect. Hey, until we talk again, thanks so much, Sammie. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Today's episode is sponsored by Search Intelligence. Here's a short clip of Ferry from Search Intelligence showing you how their agency built digital PR links to a client's website.
This campaign got us big links in websites such as Lifehacker, Wales Online, Daily Record, and about 20 other news websites. Let me show you how we've done it. We knew that people will be flying a lot this summer, and we knew that journalists will be writing about this topic a lot. So, on behalf of our client, we put together a nice guide about how to fall asleep on the plane. Then we use MuckRack to find journalists who write about travel. Then we put our advice in a nice email and send the tips to the journalists. Within just a few days, the links started landing, securing our client natural placements in really big websites, just like this, and this. This is a great example about how you can leverage seasonal trends to earn links to a website. Anticipate what journalists want to write about at all times and give them the stories that they need. They will reward you with some great, juicy links. I hope this is helpful.
Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Just a final reminder that it was brought to you by Search Intelligence. And if you're looking for link building PR campaigns for your website, just head over to search-intelligence.co.uk and get in touch with them today. Cheers.